Ma, what's up, bitches? It's Noisy Face. Getting sad because I'm getting to the end of the game. Like, look, all this DLC has not yet come out. And you know, when it comes out that I will play the shit out of it. But for now, we only have 5 moments. And then I don't know what happens when I click and then summer ended. Like, is that the end of the game? I don't want it to be. Alright, let's go. Let's go, bitches. Time to hang. Grab the large beach towel from off your bed and stuffed it into a bag. You had already packed your water bottle for the upcoming beach hangout session. Stars had aligned and somehow everyone was free today. Miranda had set up things with several bubbly phone calls between you, Cove, and Terry to find a time to hit the beach. You were hoping that this would be a fun time together. Cove sat on your windowsill and kicked one of his legs into the air idly. He already had his swimsuit on, and his towel was bundled under his arm in a misshapen ball. He'd shown up earlier that morning with a surprise amount of enthusiasm. He was chatting as you caught up to his preparation. Seriously, I couldn't find my swimsuit this morning. I looked everywhere. It had disappeared. I had no idea what I was going to do. Could have gotten a new one. What happened to all your other swimsuits? You don't have to wear a swimsuit to be on a beach. You stayed quiet. I mean, he does have a wetsuit. That is a fair point. I'm going to ask him what happened to all his other swimsuits. I'm honestly curious. I know that's not your only one. Cove looked away and shrugged. I might have some laundry to do. Anyways, I don't know why it was in the bathroom when I never put it in there. He gave a small smile and readjusted the towel in his arms. He now could see that it had been folded at some point, but then rolled up and carried without much care.
I'm so glad.
But I'm just glad I found it. It would have been crappy to lose my favorite trunks. It was nice to see Cove so happy and comfortable in what he was wearing. He walked over to your dresser and mused about how you had picked out your own swimsuit. Your height had complicated your swimsuit shopping. Not many swimsuits were well-fitting on someone who's petite. And then, for the shape of your body... Oh yeah, this is always a hard... Swimsuits are hard. How old am I now? 18 in the game? I did have curves, but I was pretty tiny. I think I still weighed like 90 pounds back then. And... ... I do not have muscle definition. Nor am I delicate. So we'll go here. Your build was toned and firm, with muscles that were there, though slight in size. You'd gained more muscle in recent years. It was clear when compared to how you were when you were younger. Oh yeah, I was thinking about some things. What things? Just myself and my body, really. His eyebrows rose at your admission of self-reflection. And what do you think? I don't know! You tell me, Cove! What did you think of who you were? You considered your identity further. You'd always felt sure about your gender. You wondered if your gender was really something you felt right about. Top one. Being called her was right for you. And... had small boobs. Your breasts were not exactly small, but not huge either. You were well endowed. In the past, you had breasts, but you had them surgically removed. Well, I don't feel I should have to explain why I'm clicking this option, but... your boobs were a large part of your frame. You liked the size you had. You wished they were smaller. You wish they were bigger. Oh, dear God, no. You used a binder, but were considering other options. You left them as they were, but were considering options for them. I'm pretty content with it. Every now and then you would wish they're smaller because they get in the way, but it's fine. It is what it is. People had a lot of their identity wrapped up in their physical form. It shaped their self-image. You were confident, you were comfortable, you weren't really content, you hated your body, you knew you had body dysphoria. Oh, that's a heavy click there. I'm gonna say comfortable. That's where I'm gonna go. Your body was you, and it was a good one that you felt content in. You used to not feel as good when you were younger, but you had since grown into your body. You felt more at home now and less uncomfortable. He focused on Cove again. He smiled at you and tilted his head, a question still in his eyes. He was waiting for you to come to him with an answer. But before you could, you had something to say to him. Oh yeah, what do you think about me, bitch? I literally asked you that. You tell me, Cove. Cove smirked a little, his eyes taking you in easily. Fishing for compliments, French fries? You look great. Everyone knows that. Including you, by the way. Unless that's changed? Pouted, you laughed, you blushed. I didn't want a compliment, I was just asking. So what if I wanted you to compliment me? You still should. I mean, this is something I would say, but this is something I would do. Especially if I just newly had a crush on this boy and we weren't dating, but I wanted to date him, I would do that. You felt your cheeks heat up and looked away. Cove shook his head. Dan went up to try to unsubtly cover his smile. Was kind of worried you were so in over your head because something was wrong. Guess not. I'm glad. Hey, French fires? Cove gave a bent smile, pointing to your arms. You're looking particularly toned today. He answered, not with words, but a solid, okay sign with both hands, and the same cheeky smile. Cove suddenly flushed when he realized how boldly he'd complimented you. He stood by it, and if he was a little red. You were taken aback. That came out of nowhere. You glanced at yourself. I didn't know you liked my arms so much. Yeah. You started to flex and show off jokingly. I would do this. I would also flirtatiously stretch. Stand there stunned. You're so sweet and fantastic. You have very good arms yourself. You hugged him. I'm going to stretch flirtatiously. Oh no! The look on his face. You fluttered your eyelashes and slowly stretched your arms out in front of you towards him. Oh, just stretching. Your sleeve fell down, but instead of fixing it, you let it stay that way. You looked Cove straight in the eye as you openly displayed your arms. Cove turned bright red and jumped to his feet. His towel dropped to the ground as he practically flew over to you. He looked at your arms and then tried to gently nudge them back down. You can stop now. Really? He laughed nervously and flailed a little. You took pity on him and stopped displaying yourself. You'd gotten the reaction that you wanted. He retreated back to sitting on the windowsill and retrieved his towel, head hung low and trying to hide his expression. Finally, you felt that was enough of the topic for one day. You went back to your original goal before you got sidetracked. You needed to pick what you wanted to wear on the beach. Chose to wear casual clothes. You picked a one-piece swimsuit. You decided to wear a two-piece. You chose a two-piece tankini. You wanted to wear a wetsuit. Okay, so here's the thing. When I was younger, I was not allowed to wear a two-piece. Even at 18, I would not have been allowed to wear a two-piece. I bought my first two-piece bikini 2 years ago. 1 year ago? Very, very recently. I didn't have a two-piece for freaking forever, but that's probably what I would wear. So we'll go with that. Well, you dug around in your drawers, tried to think if there was anything else you were missing. Sunglasses? Okay, well, I wear glasses or contacts, and most of the time I wear glasses, so I don't wear sunglasses. I typically don't wear a hat or a shawl or board shorts. I would probably bring a swimsuit cover-up. We're gonna go with that. Let's go with that. With that taken care of, you held your outfit together and looked to Cove. He was tapping his toes on the side of the wall as he waited. You vaguely wondered if he thought it was a comfortable place to sit. You hoped so, given how long he perched on it. Regardless, it was time for him to go. You weren't going to put on your beachwear with him just chilling there. Oh good, that was the answer to my previous question. I need to change. Cove smiled, content with being kicked out. All right. Cove lowered himself off the window and strolled past you to get to the door. He lightly brushed his fingers against your cheek when he passed by.
Bye.
I'll see you out front. Okay. When you were alone, you got undressed and put your swimsuit on. You also checked your beach bag for the final time, and it seemed like you hadn't forgotten anything. You left your room and hurried down the stairs, ready to meet Cove. You made sure to lock your front door and walked outside. Cove stood in the road, looking down and scuffing his feet on the asphalt. When you shut your heavy door, he looked up at you and smiled. Nice to see you again. Hi. Miranda and Terry are gonna be here in not too long. Terry even texted me earlier saying she's mostly on schedule. Why don't we just head to the beach and wait for them there? We're both ready. That sounded like a good idea to you. You said as much, and Cove shot off a quick text telling the two of them where you'd be. Cove gave you a thumbs up after the message was sent. It was a familiar path to walk, and it wasn't long until you reached the shore. What's the music? Cove laid out his towel on the warm sand. You set up your stuff beside him and looked out into the ocean. The rolling swells hit the shore rhythmically. You had all lucked out. It was a beautiful day. The sky was clear and the waves were good. It was a balmy summer day, but with a pleasant breeze to keep things comfortable. Essentially, it was perfect. Do you feel like heading into the water? Maybe just walk down the shore. Or you want to do something here? Water sounds good. Taking a stroll would be fun. You plan to just get some sun. Either way is fine. What do you want to do? Yeah, either way is fine. What do you want to do? Maybe walk a little. At first, anyway. We can do that then. Cove nodded, accepting of the plan. He kicked some sand off his towel absent-mindedly. Yeah, sounds nice. You took a deep breath and tasted the You took a deep breath and tasted the relaxing, salty air. Cove caught your eye and gave you a small smile. You chatted a little before a comfortable quiet set over the two of you, content to watch the waves as you waited for the others. Luckily, it didn't take long until you heard shouts. You turned your head to see both Miranda and Terry running straight for you. Miranda was faster, making leaps and bounds across the sand. Terry followed in her wake, laughing with her towel clutching around her shoulders and flowing like a cape. Miranda started making her jumps more theatric and more precarious as she got closer. Cove waved them on with a bright grin. Shouted a greeting, cheered at their antics, waved too, you laughed, you shook your head, you hoped they wouldn't fall. I would probably cheer my friends on. Oh, look at this little swimsuit. It's so cute. Oh, Miranda. The two officially arrived at Cove's at your setup, looking completely ready for an ocean adventure. They were already in their swimwear and were raring to go. Hey, Terry, Miranda, welcome to our beach. Hello, hello. She beamed and Miranda nodded with a smile. Man, I'm so pumped. Yeah, I'm really glad this worked out. What have you guys been up to over here in your town? Cove? French fires? Have we missed things? Cove blinked and then shrugged when nothing he wanted to mention came to mind. You shrugged like Cove, you gave a vague answer. You gave her a recap of how your family was doing. You asked what have they been up to. I want to ask them. What have you guys been up to? The usual. Terry laughed and mentioned a few things about her parents. Miranda brought up her family and shared some of the wild things her older brother had done. Terry then started talking about her morning and how she'd almost overslept since she stayed up too late last night. She bounced on her feet as she spoke. But don't worry about me being tired today. You know I ran on less back during school. Miranda filled in the group about her morning. Apparently, everything had gone smoothly, so she met up with Terry on the way here, and you knew the rest. Cove offered a suggestion to the girls. Hey, let's walk while we catch up. Oh yeah, definitely. Once everyone's stuff was settled on the beach, the group strolled over to the shoreline. The wet sand was cool under your feet. A wave rushed up and covered your ankles in water. You flinched from the suddenness of it. By the next wave, you were acclimated. You took another step forward and sank a little into the ground. Behind you, your footprints were soon smothered by the waves. Your friends chatted as you all walked together. You took turns pointing out cool shells or pieces of glass. It was a relaxing jaunt. Hours passed, and the group had moved between different activities, some low-key and some more exhaustive. For you, it was another break time. You sat on your towel and sipped at some water. Your friends were hard at work burying Terry's full body under a pile. Miranda used her arms to force up sand around Terry's sides. Cove worked on covering Terry's feet. You took another drink and closed your eyes. Eventually, a shadow passed over you, dampening the light that was still notable even behind your eyelids. You checked to see Cove had joined you there. You knelt down to dig around in a pile of assorted beach stuff in the middle of everyone's towel setup and pulled out a sunscreen. He took a seat next to you on his towel. He opened the bottle with a soft pop and began to reapply the cream. Hey. Oh, we gonna put sunscreen on a boy? That's gonna be fun. He ran his hands across his chest to work in the sunscreen, and you might have checked him out a little from the corner of your eye while still sipping on some water. After he finished up, Cove let out a comfortable sigh and looked off into the distance. Then he sighed again, this time in an exaggeratedly disappointed way. You wondered if he was going to sigh again, even more dramatically, if you didn't say anything. What's wrong? You wondered what it was. You raised an eyebrow. You chuckled. Oh, Cove, whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be okay. Yeah, again, we're pretty used to this on and off switch here with Cove, so we're going to ask him what's wrong, what's wrong. You inspected his face to see if there was anything actually distressed about him, but he still just looked like he was exaggerating. You asked anyway, since it was obvious that's what he wanted. He shook his head. Cove shook his head, comically despondent. His frown didn't match the sparkle in his eyes. I'm just becoming another jaded adult, that's all. Now you were really confused. You waited for him to continue, and his next sigh did not disappoint. It was the most ridiculously sad sigh you had ever heard. And then he smiled a little. Mermaids aren't real. What? That had not been what you were expecting. He continued. You know how much I liked mermaids as a kid. Well, merfolk as a whole. I really hoped that they were out there. I mean, the ocean's a big place, right? Could be somewhere. But the older I got, the more I had to accept it. They were just a fairy tale. He jerked his head over to the waterline and the rolling waves. They crashed against the shore and then drew back. The perfect beach for them. It's pretty and vast and never too crowded. If merfolk did exist, we definitely would have met one by now. Or at least we would have heard of someone else seeing one. But nothing. Well, unless they're like actual sirens and they just murder bitches, did you consider that possibility? He acted as though that result was true bafflement. He let his head hang. I gotta let the dream go. He burst into laughter. That's hardly proof. It's not like this is the only beach in the world. You pretended to be shocked and disappointed. You shook your head. Wow, good for you with that revelation. I'm gonna go this middle one. That sounds like me. They could still exist. As you said, the ocean is a big place. Cove chuckled a little to himself, eyes tilted off into the sea, his face still low. Maybe it's for the best. Let's say a merperson did happen to wash up on shore one day. He looked at you with a flawed, doleful expression. I could have lost my best friend to their magical underwater world. Oh yeah, I'd totally go live under the sea with the merfolk. Even if I had a chance, I'd stay on shore with you. That's too sugary. I'd go with the merperson, but only if you could come with us. No, I'm gonna go live with Merryweather, great prince of dolphins. Cove smirked triumphantly. I knew it, but I can't blame you. If a beautiful, kind merperson falls for somebody, I'm pretty positive that the sensible response isn't to turn around and say, no thanks, stay on land with this normal guy. Are you warning me that you'd leave me if you got that kind of offer? Are you so sure I'd have to make that call? Since this is all hypothetical, why not have you be the merperson? No, we're with friends. That's weird. I don't want that. I should get to be a mer creature, and then I'd invite you to the underwater world. Oh man, okay. Are you warning me you'd leave me? We're gonna go with that. You don't want me to be blindsided when you ditch me for a mer creature if they're real. No, I wasn't trying to say I'm not the one who'd have to deal with that, you know? It isn't the same kind of thing. If a merperson did magically appear, there's no chance it'd be me they'd call for. The more Cove spoke, the more it sounded like he could be merfolk himself. He was choking on air, a fish out of water. I mean, you're the one who's witty and talented. He barely eked the last words out. There isn't anyone who wouldn't choose you. Aww. You were completely flattered by how highly he thought of you. And then you heard Miranda screech. Your attention immediately switched over to your friends. You saw that Terry had gotten impatient and shifted her legs. The walls Miranda had been meticulously building collapsed into a wet heap of sand. She surveyed the damage critically. We're gonna have to start over on that part. Do you want to just give up on this now? No way! The burial must continue. I'll try not to move anymore. Okay, if you're sure. I'll try to fix this. Miranda started to rebury her, and Terry shot her thumbs up. She realized too late that moving her arm was a bad idea. More of the sand on her crumbled, and Miranda put her head in her hands. Cove caught your eye and started to drag himself up. Seems like we're needed. You agreed and followed him over to the girls. Miranda nodded at you both with appreciation, and the three of you did your best to finish the job. You all worked out a system of using just enough wet sand to help hold the rest together. With 3 people, it didn't take long for Terry to be entombed. Terry grinned massively, and Miranda offered high fives. The pile was officially done. Oh yeah! Resembling the Kool-Aid Man, she kicked herself out of the ground with gusto. Sand went flying in all directions, and a Terry-shaped imprint was left behind. Miranda yelled again, and Cove chuckled. There probably wasn't a better way to get out of it. The 4 of you continued to have a good time. You went on a shell hunt. Miranda managed to find the biggest while you found the most colorful. Cove caught a tiny crab. You did a bit of everything. There were impromptu games to just soaking up each other's company. However, after a while, you had all run out of water. Drinkable water, anyway. It was decided that you'd head to you or Cove's house. Things were gathered, and you started to cheerfully walk up the road. What next? I don't have anywhere to go, so it could be whatever. Same. I guess we can keep hanging out? Terry snorted and readjusted her grip on things. Don't sound too sure there, Cove. By this point, you could see your house. It hadn't taken you long to make the trip. The conversation continued with everyone throwing out suggestions. Are people hungry? She looked from face to face with inspection. Cove and Miranda shrugged in concert. No one was overly opposed to it. However, you weren't really starving, and it wasn't quite mealtime. We could get dessert. Miranda put a finger on her lip and thought. With a smile, her voice became more confident. Yeah, that would be fun. Terry considered it and then shot Miranda a thumbs up. Sounds good to me. I can definitely go for that. You know, I'm up for more. I am always up for a good dessert, and I thank you, game, for recognizing that. But there's nothing sweet at my house. Except for me! Oh, I'm a nerd. He glanced at Cove and his place. He shook his head immediately. Dad doesn't have anything good either. I mean, unless you want dessert-flavored protein shakes. Ew, no! She cut in and held her hands up as if trying to ward off something evil. Cove smirked. Not that bad. There has to be some kind of sweet shop around here. Let's look it up. Terry nodded and started to dig around in her bag. I like the way you think. Terry continued to rummage in her bag and grew increasingly frustrated. She puffed out her cheeks and knelt down, setting the ground on the bag. With both hands free, she was finally able to fish out her phone. She raised it up in triumph for a brief moment of celebration. I'll search for something good. Terry got back to her feet, hefting the bag over one arm, tapping away at the screen with the other. But she assessed Cove from top to bottom. No shirt, no shoes, no service. Cove glanced down at his bare chest and feet, having not even registered it prior. He chuckled a little. I'll grab something. Cove moved over to his house. You looked towards yours. You decided to change as well. You waited outside with the girls. I mean, I have a cover-up, but I am not confident, and I've given the chance to change, to go walk around and have dessert. I would probably do that, so let's do that. You felt like you'd be more comfortable in something more streetwear than beachwear. You inclined your head over to the side. I'm gonna change too. Go for it. We'll wait. Miranda nodded with a smile. You ran into your house. No one was home, so you just rushed to your room and dropped off your beach stuff on your bed. You threw something on over what you were wearing. You completely changed into casual clothes. My friends are waiting, so I would probably just throw something on over my stuff. You didn't want to take too long, so you just put on a couple things over top. You brushed off a bit of sand and thought you looked presentable. With that, he's got his little orca shirt on. With that, you sped back outside. Cove was already there and gathered around Terry's phone with the girls. He'd opted to just add a shirt and shoes, apparently putting in the minimum effort for service. Hello again. You don't really want ice cream, do you? You didn't have a chance to answer. She kept barreling through with her words. 'Cause I'm not into that right now. Are you not be into ice cream, girl? Don't mind her. You look nice, by the way. Terry scrolled further and then made an interesting exclamation. Oh, what about this place? They sell crepes. That's something you don't see every day. Look how fancy they are. She shoved her phone into your face. It seemed like a cute shop. It didn't show any pictures of the actual building, but the food seemed good. It was one of those places that put a lot of effort into presentation, with branded wrapping for the crepes and well-applied toppings. Weird. I've never heard of it. I haven't either. Mysterious. But crepes are so good. She nodded her approval as Terry admired more of the photos. I'd go. It's not too far, but we could drive. Terry cheered at the success of a plan made, and you all walked around a Cove's car. He had to run inside once more to grab his keys. You wrote, "Wash me in the dirt" on his car. I do that. You noticed a thin coat of sand and dust on Cove's car. It had probably been a while since he washed it. With a smirk, you carefully wrote, "Wash me" with your finger. Good work. I wonder if he's even gonna notice. The car beeped and unlocked. Cove ran up to you with the car keys in hands. His hair slipped into his face and he brushed it back. Shotgun! She clambered into the passenger seat without hesitation. You didn't argue and climbed into the back with Miranda. Terry activated the directions on her phone map and acted as their navigator, directing Cove to the crepes. The GPS tried to get Cove to turn into a non-existent road once. I wanted him to do a U-turn instead of just using a left turn. But with Terry looking at the actual path, it went smooth enough. You were led to a small stall in a parking lot rather than a full building. That explained why there hadn't been pictures of the crepery's interior, and why it was new to you despite living in this town your entire life. It was a completely new structure that popped up recently. There was a window you could walk up to, and one for cars to drive up to. Cove parked with a laugh.
Come on.
I don't think I need to put a shirt on for this, but I still want to try it. Let's go. Do you not trust us to eat in your car? She gestured to the drive-thru option. Cove shook his head with a snort. I trust some people here, maybe. Wouldn't it be more fun to actually check it out? Everyone acknowledged his point and piled out. Terry tried to tease Cove a little, but Miranda started talking about the last time she had crepes. Apparently, they'd been a dessert explosion, topped with multiple sauces, powdered sugar, and what Miranda was pretty sure had to be cake icing. That's sweet.
So great.
Literally, it was so good, but I regretted it so much I couldn't finish it, and I really tried. You can do it this time, Randy. There were some laughs. When you got up to the menu, you realized that there was more than just crepes. There were definitely crepes, many crepes. However, the stall also had a lot of different drinks as well. Teas, smoothies, milkshakes. Jackpot! She grinned and held out her fist for a fist bump. Miranda high-fived it. The two stared at the awkward, vaguely turkey-shaped hand configuration they had made, and then slowly put their hands down. Cove's mouth twitched in a smile. You stepped up to order first. You glanced back at the menu. Ordered a crepe, ordered a drink, and a crepe. I think I'm just gonna get a crepey grape. I'd like a crepe, please. There was a woman who looked a little older than you taking the orders. She smiled back at you, ready to hear the specifics of your purchase. For the crepe itself, you wanted plain strawberry chocolate, green tea, or lemon. I don't imagine green tea or lemon would be terribly tasty in a crepe. I'm gonna go chocolate. That's always a good bet. For the fillings and toppings, you picked whipped cream, condensed milk, cream cheese, chocolate chips, chocolate syrup, caramel syrup, powdered sugar, strawberries, mango slices, mixed berries, banana slices. Well, bananas for sure. Whipped cream is also good. Probably caramel, and that's gonna do it. You paid and stepped aside and let your friends order. Hove got a lemon crepe with powdered sugar on top and mixed the berries. He also got a plain strawberry smoothie. Terry went crazy with toppings. Although she ordered a plain crepe, she had it smothered with whipped cream, cream cheese, chocolate chips, chocolate syrup, and bananas. Miranda opted for a frappe with caramel syrup and condensed milk. The four of you stood off to the side as you waited for your treats. French fries, man, your grape is gonna rock. High five for topping appreciation. She held her hand out expectantly. You gave her a high five, you let her hanging, you fist bumped her palm. I mean, that happened earlier and it was entertaining, so I'm gonna do it. Terry stared at your hands. She blinked. She looked between Miranda and you. This is a joke thing now? I don't know what you mean. Miranda's voice surprisingly serious, while her face looked like she was seconds away from land. Miranda's voice was surprisingly serious, while her face looked like she was seconds away from laughing. Terry shook her head dramatically. Order for French fries! Oh, I gotta go get that. Grabbed your order. The others didn't take much time after that. With the goods collected, everyone admired their treats. Terry dug right into hers, and Miranda gave hers a tentative slip. Terry nodded acceptingly with her mouth completely full. Miranda tilted the frappe over to her with a grin. Terry sipped it and clearly loved it. She raised a crepe over to Miranda. You could tell that there was an intent to make it look nice, but with all the assorted toppings piled on, only so much could be done. Miranda took a huge bite with gusto and sighed happily. Terry seemed satisfied and took another slurp of Miranda's drink. They had both only gotten one thing, probably because they knew they would end up sharing. Hove, do you want to share ours? Terry, Miranda, can I join the sharing? You offered to share yours with everyone. You said nothing. I will offer Cove mine since I stole his smoothie in the mall. That seems good. Face lit up with excitement, and he passed you his crepe. Yeah, of course. You exchanged treats and took a chomp on the lemon crepe. It was light, with the sourness from the lemon and the sweetness from the syrupy berry mix. The smoothie was finely blended with the occasional chunk of strawberry. Cove seemed to enjoy his taste, and then you swapped back. He smiled as he took a sip from his smoothie. Thanks. You always get good stuff. With that, Cove started to eat his treats in earnest. You saw him take a huge gulp of his smoothie, and then, without swallowing, he added a bite of his lemon crepe. His habits of mixing foods together wasn't anything new. He hummed in satisfaction, so you guess he must have liked the combination of flavor. Cove. Terry tore off a piece of her crepe and held it out to him. Can I make a trade? Sure. Instead of continuing to loiter in the parking lot, the four of you started to walk down the sidewalk. There was a lot of sharing going on, with crepe bits and toppings being passed around. You wouldn't have been surprised if Terry ended up drinking more frappe than Miranda did. You kept going down the way, eating, drinking, and chatting. You hadn't realized just how far from the group had wandered until you ended up at the now leaving sign. Apparently, you were about to just walk right into the middle of nowhere. Terry took her mouth off of Miranda's straw and stopped sipping the frappe. Impossible! Preposterous! How are we already at the end? I always forget how tiny this town really is. Cove chuckled a little and swallowed a chunk of Terry's crepe.
I guess.
It kinda is, huh? It didn't feel that small when we were growing up. Definitely felt bigger, always seemed like there wasn't much. There are tinier places. You guys are lucky to live in decent-sized cities. I'm gonna nod in agreement. Not disagreeing with Cove, you gave acknowledgement of his words. Sunset Bird really did feel smaller these days. I guess that means we should probably head back. One doesn't just walk into Mordor. We're not the only one, Terry. There's 4 of us. Terry scrunched up her face, not wanting to acknowledge the bad joke. She decided to ignore it. It stinks having to go all the way back. Yeah, but it's not like there's anything out that direction. And if we keep going forward, it'll be an even longer trip home. He stared off into the stretch of road as Cove agreed that he didn't want to go any further. Can we take a break here first before we turn around? We've been walking for a while and someone finished my drink. Right on cue, Terry loudly sucked air from the straw. It was so good. Miranda looked at her, but Terry remained unrepentant. In the end, though, it was agreed to hang around the sign before heading back to the car. It didn't take long to finish the rest of the food and drinks. Everyone gathered up the trash and stuffed it into bags and pockets for now. The group relaxed on the grass, keeping account of all the cars that drove past. It was not a high number. 14. The newest car drove into town from somewhere outside. But as the vehicle came by, it slowed down and he watched it as it ultimately rolled to a complete stop. The black car parked right by the now leaving sign. Everyone exchanged a baffled look. But then the tinted window rolled down and the driver peered out. As soon as you saw his hair, you recognized him. No one else you knew presented themselves so distinctively. Hey, neighbors. Cove also jolted with recognition. Pasted on a cordial smile and waved politely. Afterwards, he put his mouth back over the straw of his long, empty drink, as if trying to act cool. You waved at him high. You just wondered what he was doing here. You wished he hadn't stopped. You smiled and were excited. I'm gonna go with high. Neutral highs. You inhaled and tried to be loud enough to account for the distance and the car noises. Nice to see you again. Somehow, he was able to project his voice in such a way that it was still sounding smooth, even though he was definitely speaking loudly. You wondered where he'd learned to do that. And you thought about the odd picture this made. A fancy black car pulling over to talk to a group of teens, still mostly in beachwear. Miranda was incredibly confused and shrank back to watch. Terry tilted her head up in an unspoken question. Cove made a quick gesture, pointing towards Baxter, and a light bulb went off for Terry. Ah, that's the new person in the condo? The bee man, right? Yeah, Baxter. Oh, I wasn't sure if I'd ever actually see him. Her voice was quiet. Miranda usually got shy around new people. Terry was quite the opposite. Incredible! This is perfect! Terry hopped up from the grass and ran to Baxter's car, all full of excitement. Behind her, Miranda picked herself up and dusted imaginary dirt off of her clothes. She sent a searching look to you and Cove, to which Cove shrugged. Miranda nodded with clenched fists and hesitantly followed Terry. Terry bent down to talk to Baxter through his window. She blasted through introductions, with Miranda putting in a shy wave. Cove looked at you. He still clearly had no intention of going over. Stay with Cove, you went over to Baxter, you encouraged Cove. It's rude not to say hello, Cove. Get over yourself. Cove waited in the grass without another word. You joined the other two and stood next to Baxter's car. He smiled genially at you. Baby doll, it's nice to see you once more. He gestured to Miranda and Terry. I just rented this car for my stay here, and I was coming back from a bit of sightseeing when I spotted your crowd. Then these two were kindly introducing themselves. Yep, it's only polite. Speaking of polite, since you know us, you should give us a ride. Terry. Her voice was whispered, but her tone was clear. This was not Miranda approved. What? Then we won't have to walk back to the parking lot. I'll take care of it. Miranda bit her lip. Terry, clearly not seeing the problem, pointed at Miranda and turned back to Baxter. You wouldn't make a cute girl trudge all down this empty road, right? Look at her. Baxter did. Miranda smiled uncomfortably and he grinned painfully. Of course not. Consider me at your service. Yes! She spun around and tried to wave Cove over. You could tell from his face that he was already alarmed. Get over here! Baxter's gonna give us a ride. You could make out his frown in the distance. However, he did start to drag himself out of the grass. You were happy to get a ride. You were kind of annoyed that Terry did this. You felt uncomfortable to be getting a ride from Baxter. He has not made me uncomfortable yet. Regardless of anything else, you didn't have to walk back. That's what counted, and you were grateful for Terry because she arranged it. Miranda looked down and put on a polite smile. Thank you. You're welcome. Terry did have a point. It would have been inconsiderate to abandon you here. And after all, your company is a favor to me. Miranda laughed a little, and Terry slung an arm over Miranda's shoulder with a big grin. Seeing their reactions, he made a point to search for yours, too. You didn't give a response. You rolled your eyes. You were flattered. You thought it was funny. You frowned. You hoped Cove would get there soon. I mean, I'm probably going to be flattered. He is not a terrible-looking boy, and he's pretty flirtatious, so we're going to go with that. Cove stepped up to the car, his expression now inscrutable. Hello. Hi. Alrighty, plan made. Let's hop in. You excitedly opened the passenger side door and buckled yourself in. The car was pristine, and you were right near the new car-scented air freshener. Baxter had the air conditioner on cold, but low, so it was pleasingly cool inside. A nice relief from the summer sun you had been baking in all day. Your friends clambered on in back. It definitely seemed the slightest bit squished back there. Welcome to my vehicle. I hope everyone is comfortable. If someone could point me in the right direction, we'll be on our way. You began to explain where you had come from. It was pretty easy to direct him straight down the road and one turn into the parking lot. Baxter nodded up in the driver's seat. Baxter nodded up from the driver's seat and pulled back onto the road. Luckily, the street was still dead empty. It took no time at all for Baxter to park right next to Cove's car. There wasn't even enough time for a proper conversation to start. The occupants didn't seem to mind. There were smiles all around when Baxter pointed next to Cove's car. Woo! Miranda clapped quietly as Terry cheered. Cove chuckled nervously. You smiled, yeah, you clapped as well. You nudged Baxter in a friendly way. I don't know him well enough to nudge him. I'm going to clap. That's what I'm going to do. You joined in the celebration. Baxter gave a complete polite clap as well. We've arrived! That was easy. Terry flung open the door and climbed out. Thanks! Everyone else exited the car as well. The group thanked Baxter with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Baxter himself got out too. Everyone congregated again in front of Baxter and Cove's cars. Cove looked at the back of his and frowned. He finally discovered the wash me you put on it. Huh. I wonder who did that. You snickered, along with Miranda, who realized you'd been caught. It's a mystery. Right. Terry bounced over to Baxter and offered her hand. Terry bounced over to Baxter and offered her hand for a handshake. He accepted it easily, with a charming grin. You're a pal. Oh, you're too kind. There was no trouble whatsoever. I'll be keeping the car all this summer. If it suits you, you're welcome to take my number and give me a ring whenever you're in need of another ride. That goes for everyone here. I have a car. He's so mad. Terry busted into laughter and Miranda fidgeted. She did not know what to do with that. Baxter went really fast, didn't he? He noticed her discomfort and smiled with a soft tilt of his head. I'd be happy to help again, but that's the only reason I offered. If you don't need it, you can pass on it. I kinda do want to ask him for his number. I'm gonna do it! I'm doing it, bitches! He beamed widely at your response. Oh, that voice actor. Absolutely. Oh, my word. Baxter pulled out a pen he had with him for some reason and jotted his number down. He passed the little paper to you and you accepted. Boy number. When her giggles subsided, Terry put a hand on her chin with brows furrowed. I wonder, would that option be available right now? You could valet us somewhere cool.
What?
Cove was taken aback. He put a hand on the hood of his car. Were we going back to the neighborhood? Wasn't Baxter going back to the neighborhood too? Why would we go somewhere else? Because we can. Miranda squirmed nervously and then committed to piping up. We could go to the park near my place. It's a really nice place to hang out. You and Cove shared a look. The big park was pretty nice. Let's do it! Baxter tapped the side of his face and thought. That sounds doable. He glanced at Cove and then switched focus to you. We have 2 cars. If some people want to go to the park, I could still take the others home. But if everyone's going, it wouldn't make sense for me not to. You decided to go back to the neighborhood. You wanted to continue. Don't be a Debbie Downer, Cove. God damn it. You weren't ready to tag out yet. You came to a decision and turned to Cove. Go to the park. All right. Park time it is. He smiled a little. Terry cheered and Miranda nodded happily. You felt like you made a good decision. To the car! Again! Yeah, whatever car that might be. You gestured at Cove and then at Baxter, seeing who would volunteer. Cove sighed and ran a hand through his hair. He tapped on his car hood nervously. We can go in Baxter's, I guess. It'll be less of a pain than bringing both. We're all going the same place. Are you okay with that, Baxter? Certainly. I meant what I said. When you need a lift, I can give it. Neither you nor Terry brought up any objections, and so the gang climbed back into Baxter's nice ride. This time, Baxter offered to turn on some music. After all, it would be a little bit of a drive to the park. Play what you normally would. Can we see what's on the radio? I'd rather not have any. Well, again, driver picks the music and passenger shuts their cake hole. I don't know how many times I'm going to tell you this game. Yeah, I'd like to see what kind of stuff a guy like you is into. I hope the playlist lives up to expectations. He plugged his phone into the car with the aux cord and turned on some alternative music. The music taken care of, Baxter put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot. The lot was practically empty, but you noticed that he was careful anyways. During the trip, it changed to hard rock, punk, and even screamo. Despite his personal demeanor, he didn't seem to like upbeat tracks. It took a while to arrive. By the time you got there, the sky was golden with orange streaks of sunset. Everyone got out of the car and started to stroll along one of the paths. You walked by the basketball court and some picnic tables, taking in the sights. Miranda seemed amazingly content, the location helping her to relax in the company. She led the way, sometimes stopping here or there to point something out. Baxter turned to her and nodded along. I've never been here, but I definitely see the appeal. Man, this is Randy's stomping ground. She's been coming here forever. Seriously, Miranda, have you ever had a birthday party that wasn't here? Doubt Baxter, because every year she has a blowout party in the park. Imagine, balloons everywhere. Miranda looked down, suddenly shy again with the attention on her. She let out an awkward laugh. Yup, every year. Actually, my birthday is where I first started to really get to know Cove and French fires. She smiled and then pointed to a wide, flat spot on the grass. Remember the bounce house? I remember. He chuckled, and you could practically see those old memories on his face. It was a party for ages. You were great. Yeah, it was a blast. I miss parties like that. Everyone is too cool for bounce houses. Oh yeah, that did happen. I would know, because I didn't record it. You shocked. You quietly nodded. I miss parties like that. Everyone is too cool for bounce houses, is what I'm going to go with. The group followed Miranda along to one of the picnic tables. She took a seat, and Terry slid in beside her. You spent the evening chatting amongst each other. Everyone got to know Baxter a little better, although you could tell Cove and him still hadn't fully clicked. At one point, Miranda found an absent soccer ball and started tossing it around. To me! Miranda threw the ball to her. Terry caught it with a smile. Think fast! She chucked it at Baxter, who only had enough time to squeak. It bounced off his chest, and he stared at it, dazed. He blinked as if he needed time to process what exactly had happened, but then grinned dangerously. He rushed after the ball, and rather than throwing it back, he surprised Terry and everyone else by lobbing the ball high into the air. You bent your neck back to watch its ascent and inevitable decline. Baxter hooked it with his foot and launched it up again. There were oohs and ahs from Terry and Miranda. Baxter gave them a very proper bow. When it finally fell to the ground for real, Cove was the one who picked it up. He was impressed, and he wanted in. With that, everyone was drawn into the game. It was unspoken that whoever did the fanciest trick won. Most of the game was not particularly practiced in throwing a ball, so not many of the tricks were actually good. However, there was a lot of laughter, and you got to see Miranda pull off a round-off where she threw the ball with her feet, so that was cool. The sunset eventually darkened into the night, and the streetlights turned on. Your group's chosen picnic table laid in a bubble of light. The occasional bug cast a shadow as it flew by. It's a little strange being here so late on a normal night. Usually that only happens if there was a party or important game or a fireworks show. Fireworks! Her yell startled Baxter, who was throwing the ball nonchalantly from hand to hand. He missed catching it, and it sailed sadly back to the ground. You looked at Terry for her loud outburst. I just remembered. There's going to be a fireworks show tonight. It's in the city. Well, isn't that convenient, Terry? At everyone's questioning looks, she huffed and tried to explain further. It's some celebration for the opening of something. I don't remember. I don't think we could get into the actual event anyway. Oh, but we can. We can. Because Baxter is like Kay Whippet Fry. And we're going to be Captain Tight Pants. And we're going to go with Baxter. I'm just saying. Should still be able to show if we get close. You can't keep explosions in the sky away from public. Cove raised an eyebrow and drummed his fingers on the table below him. Want to change locations again? Wasn't the last 2 times enough? Terry rolled her eyes and shook her head. To her, it was obvious. Don't be a wet blanket, Cove. What about you, French fires? Randy, Baxter, you want to see the fireworks? Yeah. Fireworks are awesome. What I'm gonna say. I guess there are fireworks. Alright, whatever. What's one more scene change? Yeesh! I knew it was a good idea! In turn, 4 sets of eyes looked at Baxter. As the driver, his answer made or broke the plan. He chuckled softly. In for a penny, in for a pound. I'll go.
Honestly.
Genuinely, there's nothing better to occupy my time tonight. We better hurry, or we might miss it. Cove rolled his eyes, but laughed. Everyone headed back to the car yet again. Terry brought out her phone to navigate to the city, and Baxter stepped on the gas. You were on your way. Baxter drove past buildings aglow in warm yellow light that cut through the navy-black night. One office building had bright LED lights that cycled through a whole rainbow of hues. It was difficult to get through all the traffic on the road, let alone to find parking this late at night. Luckily, Miranda had eagle eyes when it came to scoping out a spot. She pointed to a sedan pulling out, and Baxter parked within seconds. Not wanting to miss the show, you all raced down the waterfront walkway to find a place that was a good view. What about here? Cove peered across the rails into the distance and shot her a thumbs up. It was relatively quiet, isolated, and you could see skyscrapers. It was a good sign, based on where Terry thought the event was. Yes, this should work fine. She stopped and tried to catch her breath, her hands on her knees. Miranda leaned against the wall between establishments as she recovered. Cove wasn't even breathing hard. He stood by you with a slight smile on his face. He only let out a relieved sigh. Think we missed anything? Not a chance. Nothing's happening, and we can't be so late that we missed everything. Maybe it'll start soon. You felt excited. You thought it was kind of silly. You were nervous. You were pretty laid back about the whole thing. It's gonna be excited or laid back. I honestly haven't gone to go see fireworks in a really long time. Let's say excited. The spontaneity of the whole thing combined with the amazement of fireworks was a recipe for you to be bursting with anticipation. It couldn't start soon enough. Terry led Miranda to sit down on an oval slab along the path. Miranda took a seat and began tapping her knees together as she waited. Terry, meanwhile, crouched more than sat. Baxter smiled politely and looked from you to Cove. He seemed to be waiting for one of you to speak first rather than wanting to directly start a conversation. Something seemed to strike Cove as he turned unsuccessfully to hide a smile. Wearing beachwear in the middle of the city, in the dark, while waiting for a fireworks show was clearly the joke of the day for him. Cove snorted once and then looked back up at the sky. But I'm not sure if this tops that one night you went around town with me and my mom dressed in my pajamas. Oh yeah, I did do that. You laughed too when you remembered the incident. It had been quite the escapade. Now that sounds like a story I'm interested in hearing. Cove looked at him and then to you, shaking his head slightly. That kind of is the story. There's not a lot else to say. Oh, you're not going to tell him how you got scared like a sissy bitch and I had to hold your hand? You're going to admit that part out, are you? You weren't entirely sure about that, but Cove wasn't ready to start reminiscing with Baxter.
So,
Well, I wish I'd gotten the memo of tonight's dress code. Could have suited myself to fit. He tugged on his shirt sleeve with a faint grin, going for humor. He definitely was overdressed when you compared him to the rest of you. It succeeded in making Cove smile. Sorry. A flash lit up the sky with brilliant green. Your eyes flew off the building in the distance and silently watched with bated breath. You heard a second boom and a red firework lit up the night. Woo! The show's starting! It's so pretty. They came running over to get closer, positively beaming. Terry pressed herself to the waterfront fence, getting as close as possible, without going swimming again. More fireworks went off, shouting out hundreds of tiny, sparkling lights. The colors stood out starkly against the dark of the night. The biggest ones washed your surroundings with their hue, turning your world blue, then red, and then golden. Did I deliver or did I deliver? Miranda's eyes glittered, and she lightly bumped Terry with her hip. Good job. Terry stumbled at the friendly nudge, but was pleased with the compliment. She grinned back. Miranda lightly swung her hips the opposite way to give you a bump as well. It was friendly and soft. We did it! You gave her a little push in turn with a laugh. You were pleased that you hadn't missed the show. You were glad everyone seemed to be having a good time. You were uncomfortable with how near it was. It's going to be these top two. I'm probably going to say this middle here. Cove stared up at the sky with wonder, while Terry squealed in joy after a series of especially grand explosions. Miranda pointed to one that was shooting up, and then gasped when it bloomed and turned into a huge sphere of violet light. Baxter smiled in appreciation. It was good to see your friends in high spirits. The rest of the group huddled around the railing to take in the shower as close as possible. Miranda stood close by. Terry's hands gripped the top. Cove laid his arms across it while leaning forward, and Baxter rested his elbows on the rail, putting his back towards the fireworks. He seemed to have more fun watching others than the actual show. Oh! She pointed out a golden firework and beamed. Oh, that's so cool! Terry held up a hand for a high five, and Miranda obliged her. Terry whooped and shot you a smile. What color do you think the next one will be? Without giving Baxter a glance, Cove answered immediately. Green. It was orange. Baxter chuckled, but wasn't interested in calling Cove out for being wrong. Is that your favorite color? Green? It's one of them. I think that's nice. Matches you. Is yours black? God, Cove! Don't be a dick! That's one of them. Cove smirked just a little and left the conversation there. Stood next to the girls, stood next to Baxter, stood next to Cove. Why is this a decision? I'm gonna stand next to the girls. We're hanging out. We're being girls. Girls noticed you moving closer and made room for you in the middle. You stepped into the space and they smiled at each other. Then the two leaned in, sticking you firmly in between them, and Terry laughed. Friend sandwich! Miranda laughed as well, and you smiled. The three of you watched the show all bundled together. The spectacle continued to up the ante by bringing more fireworks out at a time. The colors danced across the sky and reflected over the water. You reached out a hand and watched. It was tinted green while a big boom sounded. Fireworks were a normal summer tradition, but this was admittedly an unconventional approach. Showing up in the city last minute to watch a display from a technically private event, that made this feel special in a way that just planning to go to a public fireworks show never would. Terry's idea may not have left you with a lot of time to prepare, but it sure led to a unique situation. It was clear that this was an unforgettable night. As the finale sounded, blazing the sky with unbelievable beauty, you remembered thinking that there might never be a night exactly like this once again, not for the rest of your life. You planned to hold on to the feeling you had in that moment for as long as you could. From the moment you woke up, you knew that today was going to be busier than usual. There was a list of errands that needed to be finished before the day was done. First up was visiting one of the biggest farmers markets in the area. It was only open 2 weeks a month during certain parts of the year. It was rare that you and your family were able to attend, so your moms liked to make the most out of every minute of it. And you realized it was not just them feeling that way when you heard a whistle from your left side. Wow, this is a swanky show, brah. Vegetables have never seemed so highbrow. Seriously, they don't mess around with their products. Isn't it exciting? Liz crossed her arms. You could tell she was amused. We could not have picked a more perfect trip. It's been too long since we've had a true family outing. Her teasing tone said more than she actually did. Your next-door neighbors had joined you this day, and that was made it a true family outing. 3 parents laughed approvingly. Out of the corner of your eye, you caught Cove looking at you sympathetically. Sometimes things never changed, and some jokes never died. You long accepted that. You were excited to check things out. You thought the trip might be fun. You shrugged, feeling indifferent. You felt uncomfortable. You were in a bad mood. The trip was a waste of time. It might be fun. I'm gonna go. Well, if I hardly ever come here, I'm probably excited. Choices. There were so many stalls. You couldn't even imagine what hidden gems you might find among them. Bubbling with anticipation, you smiled. Well, I'm ready to get started. Got plenty of dishes in mind I could use ingredients for, brah. Before your moms responded to that, they glanced at each other and smiled. Yeah, that's a good idea, Cliff. This place is much larger than it seems. It's difficult to visit each part in a single day. Sure, we can make a decent dent together at least, brah. Actually, since there's so many of us this time, we could take different sides of the market. Divide and conquer, eh? That sounds brilliant. Everybody watched your mom, surprised. No one had considered that an option, but your mom flashed the group a dazzling smile, continuing with the thought. So, it's a little unfair that there are 4 Noisy-Face family members and only 2 Holdens here, but I'll go with the boys to even out your odds. That's fine with me. Cliff scratched the back of his neck and slowly met Cove's stare. They both seemed unconvinced, but weren't sure what to say about it. Don't worry, we'll only be apart for a few hours, and then we'll have something to talk about at the end of it. Father and son ultimately nodded. This wasn't an argument that they were going to win. Alright, I don't get the point, but I also don't mind spending the first part of the trip with French fries and Ma. Ma clapped her hands together at that. Wonderful. Are the teams ready to go? Hey, I didn't agree to anything. Yeah, let's go. Can I be the one who goes with the Holdens instead? That's probably something I would say, like, I hang out with you, moms. I see you every day. From your mom to your ma, hopeful that you'd at least get to explore the market with Cove. He perked up at the suggestion, but you saw that Ma was pounding at your request to leave her group. Sorry, no can do this time, kiddo. Seeing that neither parent was budging, you slumped your shoulders. We won't be split up too long, right? Ma hooked an arm around you in a little side hug, and you grinned. Yes, thank you, French fries. Taking the lead, Mom walked towards Cove and Cliff. You were still eyeing her confusedly. Come on, boys, we're heading out. Sure, brah. Okay. Cove looked at you softly and felt himself pulled forward, stopping in front of you. His expression flickered for a moment, hesitant. Bye. Suddenly, he twitched slightly, his whole body getting stiff. Okay, well, it's either Jeremy or Baxter. He jerked his gaze back at your mom, and you realized that she had grabbed the hem of his shirt. I'm wrong. She smiled it. She gave it a small tug before letting it go. Time's a wasting, Cove. If I'd known you long enough to be aware that you're not one to linger, if I don't stop you now, you'll only drag your feet on parting ways more. The two of you can survive one morning apart, probably. We have important shopping to do. Cove gasped. But what he felt was a truly obscene thing to say. His face burned red, and that was ignored by him. He spoke with an unimpressed roll of his eyes. Don't need to literally pull me away from French fires. Not that clingy. Mom sniggered with a shake of her head. Cove's eyebrows raised over the reaction, and she turned to Ma. She wouldn't meet his eye, and she whistled innocently. Liz smirked ear to ear, and Cove whipped his head towards his dad. Mr. Holden couldn't offer any more than an apologetic shrug. As it was only then that it dawned on Cove that everyone did think he was needy. Finally, he dared to face you with wide, pleading eyes. Don't make fun of Cove, who said you were allowed to say things like that. Cove is totally capable of being independent when he wants to. There's nothing wrong with being attached, it's nice, so come on, Cove, you know how it is. Silently stared back at him. I would say this one, because he has been going out to visit his mom and spending more time away and all of that, so we're going to go there. He spoke very matter-of-fact and fixed a stern gaze on the group. Cove, meanwhile, beamed at having your support. Without thinking, Cove took another step forward, feeling drawn to you. Also, again, Mom grabbed the back of his shirt. She tried suppressing her laughter, but a few chuckles escaped. Actions speak louder than words. Cove's mouth twisted as he struggled to come up with something to say in his defense. He was newly embarrassed all over again. Yeah, well, so what? That admission had Liz, your mom's, and his dad bursting into laughter. Cove grimaced and walked several steps from the group before stopping. He clearly wanted to move on, so much so that he was physically moving away. I'll see you soon. For a moment, you weren't sure if Cove heard you over the noise of the market, but then he nodded. You smiled swiftly, watching him get over his embarrassment and relax a bit. See you in a few hours. Take care of yourselves, brah. At that, Mom picked a direction and set out into the market with Mr. Holden and Cove following behind her. Grinning, Ma sent them off with a big wave. Liz gave a daintier goodbye wave herself. Despite the change in plans, you were glad to be here. Felt change in plans was a good idea. You were unsure about it. You had been happy, but now you were annoyed. That definitely put a damper on your good mood. Like, I don't really care. It's not a big doohickey macabre. It wasn't what you imagined, but that didn't matter. There was a whole market to explore, and you couldn't wait to find some good stuff. When they were gone, Ma cheerily turned towards you and Liz. She put her hand on her hips. Do you think there'll be any nice ginger round here? We'll have to find out. You nodded in agreement, keen to truly get the trip going. Ma led you both into the busy market. Some time passed browsing. There were only a few stalls you stopped at, You had fun chatting and laughing, pointing out various things to Ma and Liz, and vice versa. At one point, Ma stopped suddenly. She put a hand on her belly and gave a half-hearted smile. I think I should have used the bathroom before we left home like the two of you responsibly did. Just need to pee? Yes, Liz. I'll have a visit to the ladies' room now. Should we wait here? Should Liz and I go with you? Should we all go with you? We wait here. Should Liz and I go on without you? Should we all go with you? I'm gonna say without you. Should we go on without you? Ma craned forward as she struggled to pinpoint the direction she needed to go. She gently considered your suggestion. Actually, I might need help finding my way. Can you please come, Lizzie? You and your sister had to share a look over that. Why do that, of all things? Ma, if anyone should go anywhere on their own, shouldn't it be you? You're the one needing a detour, and you're the parent here. Ma giggled, unfazed by the resistance. Liz, meanwhile, tipped a brow of her hat up, watching Ma skeptically. Soon enough, French Friars will have to handle these kind of errands on her own. This makes good practice. What? Ma hooked an arm around Liz's and pulled her along. Have fun. We'll find each other again later. Excuse me. Bye, wait, you waved. You tried to follow after them. You stood there stunned. I would probably bye! It was all you could mutter as Ma and Liz waded into the crowd. They were out of sight within moments, and what started as a group outing rapidly became you, entirely on your own. Overwhelmed, you thought, screw them. You were done with this whole trip. You felt great being left on your own. You thought Ma was being ridiculous, but you really didn't mind. You didn't know what to think. I would probably feel overwhelmed, especially if I don't go here much. That's very much me. You weren't prepared at all to be flung out here on your own. Walked off on your own, found a place to sit. Texted Cove. I don't know if his dad, if my mom is going to let him come over here. Whether or not I'm texting him to meet up, I would probably text him because I'm overwhelmed and we're really close friends. Let's go with that. At this point, you had no interest in your mom's plans. If they weren't going to stick around to follow it through, you were going to do whatever you actually wanted. Taking out your phone, you quickly pulled your chat up with Cove and sent, "Quick question. You want to shop with me? Or could I join you instead? Ma and Liz kind of abandoned me over here." It wasn't long before you got a response back. Cove responded in rapid-fire messages. What? Wait. Where are you? You took a survey of the surroundings and then sent him a description of where you were and the path you took to get there. While you waited for his response, you watched all the people moving around and past you. There wasn't a single familiar face. When your phone received a new text, you breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, I'm on my way. You're a lifesaver. Cove couldn't get there fast enough. There wasn't any reason that you could think of why you had to wander around the market alone. When you were certain Cove wasn't sending any more messages for now, put your phone away. The familiar keychain caught your eye, bringing a warm smile to your lips. It was still so easy to remember those early days of your relationship with Cove, his pink cast and big, sad eyes, frustration with his parents. But through it all, he was there. Since you met him, Cove had always been there. You had grown up to really appreciate what that meant. You placed your phone back where it belonged and checked around for a nearby stall to kill time at. One pulled your focus. While most stalls were selling various garden-grown fruits, this one had an array of homemade fudge. There were even vegan versions of every option. Got closer. I'm not a fudge fan. Like, I like chocolate, but I don't typically like fudge, so I'm gonna pass on the fudge. It was fun getting a peek at the options, but you weren't enticed enough to buy any. For the next several minutes, you stood there on high alert, trying to spot Cove among the crowd. You broke into a smile when you saw his familiar seafoam hair sticking out above the masses. He hadn't seen you yet, but Cove was walking with purpose in your direction. You noticed he was hefting a couple bags in his hand. Standing firm, you cupped your hands around your mouth for added projection. You took a deep breath. Hey! Oi! Shiloh! Holden, get your butt over here! He instantly stopped dead in his tracks. Alert, Cove's head snapped up and his eyes searched the crowd until they landed on you. His whole demeanor brightened at the sight. French fires! But even from a distance, you could tell his mood shifted again. He seemed serious. You weaved through passers-by deftly in an attempt to get through as fast as reasonably possible, slipping around them with ease. Over to him, you couldn't move from where you were. Bounced in place, excited for him to reach your spot, you ran to meet him. I actually don't like making my way through large crowds. I will if I have to. But I feel like in this case, I'm probably going to go with this option here. Your feet were rooted to the spot as he urgently neared more and more. It only took a moment for him to arrive. Are you alright? Mostly. How'd you escape from my mom? I didn't have to. Weren't the only ones to just leave. Your mom took my dad before you even messaged. You're kidding. I wish. This happened to both of us. They planned it. They had to. But I don't know why. Are they pranking us? I don't know either. And you meant it. You couldn't fathom what your moms were up to. Cove shook his head, trying to clear his mind. They're being sneaky parents, and they're like, hey, remember that time our kids slept together in the loft? We should probably give them some privacy.
Well,
guess things are just up to us now. Yeah. So, His gaze wandered off, as if one of your parents might simply appear if he kept checking, and you could tell he was still processing the situation. He scratched the back of his head, looking sheepish. Do you still want to go shopping with me? Obviously. Cove beamed, and you were ecstatic at the thought of spending the rest of the trip with him. It was finally time to take some control back over your day. Even if we have to make our own fun, we're gonna have a good trip. Cove smiled at you encouragingly. It made you feel optimistic, hopeful, glad, but overall unhappy. Nothing was a terrible trip either way. Optimistic, I'm gonna say. Having him there was already comforting, and now he also seemed determined to improve your day by any means. That had you looking forward to what was coming next. So, where to first? I don't mind going back the way I came if it's new to you. It's not hard to miss stuff, even if I've gone past it. What have you gotten? Cove shuffled his bag around and started pulling them open so you could peek inside each one. You recognized the array of things he picked up around the market. I mostly got typical things I can use pretty easily so far. Nothing super exciting. And, well, I picked up a few things I figured you might want to have too. There were a few avocados, some lemons, and potatoes, among other things that were wrapped up so you couldn't discern what they were. You chose perfectly. Thank you. What Cove bought made sense, but it was far from a complete selection. You glanced around at the nearby stalls. You want to start over there? Cove followed your eyes as you pointed at one of the larger stalls. It was filled with several kinds of staple fruits and vegetables. Yeah, let's go. Once a few people finished paying and moving, you and Cove got yourselves directly in front of the shop. There were so many things to pick from. Apples, oranges, peaches, strawberries, onions, peppers, lettuce, cucumbers, carrots, lemons, limes, spinach, potatoes. You didn't get anything. You just walked over there to look at all this shit and you didn't pick it up. Okay, let's see. Peaches, strawberries, peppers, lettuce, cukes, carrots, limes, spinach. He had potatoes. The shop owner put your selection together and handed it to you in a couple bags. Happily, you paid and waited for Cove to make his purchase. Ready to go? Cove grinned, satisfied with his new choices. He had added another bag to his small but growing collection.
All right.
You nodded. Okay, now let's go. Together, you and Cove wandered the market on the lookout for any stalls that caught your attention. Cove was walking around with a spring in his step, talking about the various meal ideas he had in mind. After a while, you had to go greater distances to find something of interest. Several of the stalls were selling the same goods. It was only a matter now of which you wanted to buy from. You continued ambling down the path until Cove disappeared suddenly from your peripheral vision, pulling you away from your thoughts. Cove? You spun around, spotting him some steps back. He was standing still. You followed his eye line past the crowds. Immediately, you knew what grabbed him: homemade jams and local honey. That stall was glittering with quaint glass jars stacked high, each encasing gels of various colors. Cove's eyes were practically sparkling at the sight. His feet automatically began to take him there. Likely without being fully aware, he had made an unexplained detour. When you got closer, you were surprised that there were even more varieties than you thought. There were even different honeys based on what type of pollen the bee used. Cove's focus seemed torn between a bottle of blackberry jam and one of the clover honeys. Do you want some honey, honey? I wonder what on earth you could possibly want at this stall. Everything looks good. Shook your head, you quietly left him to his dilemma. I really don't think I should call him honey. I think that would really embarrass him. I really want to do it though. God damn it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Dumbfounded, Cove nodded in response. His face was burning red. You grinned, way too pleased with your own joke. You thought things over for yourself, too. Clover honey, orange blossom, spring wildflower, honey butter, strawberry jam, raspberry jam, blackberry jam, apricot jam, blueberry jam, plum jam, rhubarb jam. Okay, orange blossom honey sounds good. I like strawberry jam and blackberry jam. Apricot jam is also good, and that's everything. You paid, and the shop owner started putting together your order. They carefully packed it in a single bag with paper. Thank you very much. Amused, you watched Cove give in and just buy both the clover honey and the blackberry jam. He also went all in, getting spring wildflower honey and plum jam, too. The shop owner thoughtfully wrapped each in brown paper to protect them before putting them away in the bag, and handed the purchase to Cove.
Thank you.
You both stepped away from the stall. Cove didn't fail to notice the look you'd been giving him since he agonized over his toast toppers. Hey, this doesn't go bad for a long time, so why not suck up? I could have chosen one if I wanted to. Sure, I get it. Why do you think I got so many? Good then. As you began to stroll, Cove looked up at the sky. He smirked. It was sort of unexpected. considering all of this was technically an errand and unexpected changes often upset him. He was happy. Cove liked doing this sort of normal thing. You could tell that Cove especially enjoyed doing these kind of things with you. Blush, thinking about how comfortable doing this with Cove felt. You're feeling better than you were earlier. You were just feeling down about how the trip turned out. Cove's pleased attitude annoyed you. I'm a blushy motherfucker, so let's do that. It felt more than normal or mundane. Felt right. I'm glad you're having a good time. We're so domestic. I wonder what the others are doing. You remain silent. I'm glad he is having a good time. And you meant it. Cove's good mood was only helping to boost your own, and you were thankful for that. Are you? Yep. You put an emphasis on the popping. Cove chuckled at your response, happy to see a change for the better in your mood. Later, when you spotted a less crowded area, you took a break from browsing. Cove started rummaging through one of his bags, just to check on how his goods were doing. A smile grew on his face, and he went on to the next. You chuckled, knowing for sure that Cove wouldn't let anything go to waste. He was going to eat it all. You held a hand in front of your face as you squinted upwards. The sun had moved quite a bit. You'd been at the market for a good while now. Neither your feet nor your arms were sore right now. Cove looked to be doing fine too, but that was something that could be coming. There was a price to pay for this much shopping, and it wasn't always just in money. Piggyback rides! Y'all know me by now. You know I'm gonna do it. Yeah, for you, I can do that. Cove crouched down low so you could climb on. You pressed yourself against his back and comfortably wrapped your arms around his neck. Once you were in position, he stood. Your head steadily rose high above the crowds. It was lifting your spirits pretty literally. Cove huffed, letting out a breathy laugh. Are you okay? Yeah, just realized this means I'm the one carrying all the bags too, not just you. Should I get down? No, I got it. Cove strikes me as one of those, like, one-trip motherfuckers. Puts all the bags on his arms, though it's clearly uncomfortable to do so. Cove took a few test steps and then stopped. He grinned, pleased with himself. Ready to get going? Keep an eye out for any good deals while you're up there. You got the best view around. You laughed and leaned backwards away from him. Cove gasped, lurching forward to get back into place. My eagle eye sees it all. Not a single deal will escape me. Cove snorted, amused at your enthusiasm. And with that, you and Cove continued your trip through the market together. Ma and Mom had both texted you during the trip, though only to say that they'd hoped you found some good stuff and that they'd see you later. There was no answer on where they went or why. You and Cove continued to wind your way through the bustling market, the list of outstanding items steadily shrinking while bags grew heavier. As you had an unrivaled view of the market thanks to Cove's height, locating the produce your heart desired had been easy. Carrying every single thing purchased as well as another person made it hard for Cove to check his own phone, so he'd made do without. Eventually, though, he said that he ought to check it for anything important. So your ride came to a stop, out of the flow of foot traffic, and you dismounted from his back. Cove rearranged all the bags he was carrying, freeing a hand so he could pull out his phone. You watched his eyes dart over the screen as he read the waiting messages. Not important. I can reply to that later. He mumbled his verdict under his breath. Then Cove's face scrunched up with confusion. What? I got a message from Dad. Listen to this. Cove, I wasn't part of the plan. I don't know what's going on. When I left with French Fires' mom, where are you, brah? Sent that ages ago. I didn't hear it come in. He sent another one since then. Says he hopes I'm alright and that he's not bothering me. The newest one says everybody's going to the parking lot soon and we can meet up there. He lowered his phone, eyes narrowed. The same conclusion that was settling on you had landed on Cove as well. So it was on purpose. Lifted the phone up again, staring hard at the screen. Didn't my mom pull this stunt when you were little? You know, that time she took us to the mall. At least your mom said she was leaving. My mom's had a plan. The mall thing was spur of the moment. Is this a mom thing? What your mom did was even worse. That's mean. I don't remember. You didn't say anything. I'm gonna say, is this a mom thing? Cove blinked, a slight frown furrowing his forehead. He didn't seem to know how to respond to this. The crowd of people passing by stayed as noisy as ever, a sharp contrast to the silence that had fallen over you and Cove. He was rubbing the screen of his phone against his shirt, wiping away dust and debris. He continued scrubbing the screen long after anything could have remained. The action, a poor substitute for pushing away the awkwardness of the moment. You felt all right about it. The whole mess was so upsetting to you. You were furious. You didn't care about what your moms had done. You were struggling to comprehend this. The shock was too fresh for you to even know how to feel. I would say, like, all right. There was no malice behind the plot. You were quite sure of that. Your moms must have had their reasons for doing this, and it hadn't harmed you in any way. Okay, fine. How are they going to explain this? This can be really weird, huh? You shrugged. You exhaled a tired sigh. Parents are weird.
Are you okay?
His voice was gentle. I'm peachy. That's good. Abandoning us without a warning wasn't really a cool idea, even if they meant well, which they probably did. He looked at you straight in the eyes. You're really nice and understanding. Not making a big deal out of this is only one single example of that. You don't have to be nice all the time. Stuff can bother you. It's okay too. When have I ever said that stuff doesn't bother me? Whitey McFlight pants on the golf course on her date? That bothered me. We'll understand. I'll understand. Can't. I don't have anything to complain about. Maybe I am kind of mad. Okay, I'm disappointed. You can be kind of annoying to me. I'm literally just ranting about that, so I feel like I have to click it. Cove managed a faint smile and held up his hands, palms forward. It was as if he was pleading guilty to the charge. I know I can be selfish and upset people, but that's how I know that what I'm saying is true. Even when I'm the one causing trouble, I'm forgiven. Given chances to do better next time. He chuckled lightly. You knew what he was saying was true. Cove wasn't always faultless, but you were painfully aware that you could never hate him despite it. That was okay. No one could be perfect all the time. He could probably do something that would make me hate him. I'm just saying. You then drew a deep breath, the fresh air steadying you. You didn't stop until your lungs were full. Cove watched over you, still concerned. Even though I guess it's not exactly my fault this time. But is there anything I could do to make you feel better? Even a little bit? Give me another piggyback ride, bitch! You're my piggyback bitch. You already have. You're not the one who can make this better. You shook your head. Hey, aren't I the one who's supposed to help you with your parents? Can I have a hug? Well, I don't need a hug. I'm gonna say you already have. did? Yeah, you really did. Cove nodded in understanding. He smiled a simple, open, and honest smile, and you knew that he accepted your answer. After a moment, he stepped further away from you, face turned. Cove closed his eyes and took a deep breath. His brow creased, then furrowed deeper into a scowl, his arms tightly coiling together. Oh, some music! So they did do something stupid. I knew it. His voice had taken on an exaggerated quality, but what truly distinguished it from Cove's typical speaking tone was an abundance of rage. This is such a chore. Parents are so dumb. Why do people have to go places with family members anyway? I hate them. And I also hate farmers markets. You got it instantly. It had been years since the boy with the bowl cut had been in town for summer, but Cove had never forgotten. To this day, he continued to unleash his impersonation whenever the moment felt right. Sometimes you wondered if the act had grown more exaggerated over the years, or if the kid really was always that ridiculous. Burst out laughing, you shook your head at Cove's silliness, you played along, smiled quietly, that kid is never gonna live it down. You quietly said, I would probably play along. Wow, what's wrong with you? I'm not wrong, actually. If you were as smart as me, you'd know that. Cove gave you a lopsided smile, letting the joke rest for now. But come on, should probably go meet up with the group. Yeah. You didn't dally any longer, slipping back into the crowd and making your way towards the entrance of the farmer's market. It didn't take long to reach the parking lot. Your parents, Mr. Holden, and Liz were already waiting there, and they waved at both of you as you approached. Your family seemed to be in a pretty good mood. In contrast to Mr. Holden, he stared at Cove with an open concern as you got closer. He does genuinely look concerned. Hey, bro. Hey, French fries. How you doing? You'd be better if we hadn't been abandoned in the farmer's market by our families. Saw your mom's frowning at his response. Ma glanced from Cove to Mom with blinking eyes. Just because French fries tries to make things a good time no matter what doesn't mean you just leave her out of your plans and expect her to go with it every time. Ma hung her head ashamed, and Mom had a hand pressed to her cheek. You could tell that they were quickly regretting their scheme. I'm so sorry, French fries. Her words were full of emotion. Mom squeezed Ma's arm. We were trying to make the errand more of a trip, less of a chore. Ma nodded. We didn't think you, Cove, and Liz wanted to be stuck trudging around a market with your parents all day, especially not in the summer. But you're always very thoughtful and don't like to leave your moms behind, so we did ourselves. It was only going to be for the market, not the other stops, I promise. Still, you're right. We could have just told you and let you make your own call. I'm really sorry. Neither of us meant to upset you. All gas, no brakes. We should have known better. Sorry. Ma ditched me too, after pulling her urgent potty break stunt, if that helps. I went off to do my own shopping, and it seems they planned. Sorry I didn't check back on you. I was just thinking and just tried to blow it off. He quietly took in their stories of what happened. Over to the side, Cove was talking to his dad. Thanks for telling me something was up, though I feel bad for missing the warning when you sent it. Oh, that's no trouble, bruh. I learned my lesson about making surprise plans. Cove smiled at his dad. Mr. Holden laughed, clapped Cove on the back. Wow, we're really being outplayed today. You realized you hadn't been the only onlookers to Mr. Holden's moment. Your moms were exchanging rueful looks. Liz had her arms crossed over her chest, patiently watching it all unfold. Yes, looks like it. We better find some way to catch up. Maybe we can do French fryers chores for the next week. Ma jabbed Mom on the shoulder. Might be on to something. French fryers. How do you like the sound of that? They looked at you hopefully. Sounds good to me. Make it 2 weeks. You're gonna have to do more than that. I'll think about it. You don't have to do anything. I'm gonna joke with them and say, make it 2 weeks. Mom laughed, despite your totally serious words. I hear you. At the very least, we can make sure everyone stays together for the rest of the stops we're making today. You all nodded at the suggestion. We won't let you down. We'll be the best sheepdogs ever, guarding the flock and catching any strays. We could at least be shepherds. You chuckled, your mood lifting in spite of the bumpy morning. It was going to be all right. You turned to the entrance of the farmer's market for one final glance, pressing it to your memory under this new light. You thought on what you picked up at the market and how you were going to enjoy it later. Some things you could only get from local suppliers like this. That was another perk about coming to the market today. Cove then sidled up next to you, an eager smile on his face. You could tell from his expression that he was up to something. I know this wasn't part of the plan for the day, but nothing that happened really was. So, you've been plotting your own scheme? He laughed. Anyway, well, I sort of picked something out with you in mind. You held your hand to your chest, staring at Cove as he further explained. Since your mom's decided we should shop separately, I figured I could use the time to get you something. Just a little surprise. He reached into one of his bags and retrieved one of the wrapped-up objects. You accepted the unexpected present, and he looked on excitedly as you tore off the paper. It was a glass bottle of root beer soda. Do you remember when I ordered that when we went to lunch with your mom? That's so cute! Need to taste it to know that it would be nice. It was a boutique product. It was heavy in your hands. The container and smart metal cap reaffirming the quality. Even the label, constructed from coarse paper rather than a flimsy sheet of plastic, was distinctive. You were practically bouncing in anticipation, and he smiled sweetly at your reaction. It's not a big deal. I just thought you might like it. Thank you, you didn't have to do that. You're wonderful. Smiled at him. You're always getting me things. That's a lie. You shook your head at his antics. Probably thank you is what I'm gonna say. You were touched that Cove wanted to treat you to something nice. Whether you were physically together or not, you were clearly always on his mind and in his heart. Liz clapped her hands together with the air of a teacher calling for attention. Since the other adults aren't acting like grown-ups, the rest of us are going to have to pick up the slack. It's time to get back on schedule and continue with the rest of the errands. Playtime is officially over. Ma laughed while Mr. Holden grinned awkwardly. Mom hung her head in an exaggerated display of mock defeat. Kids are tough, and I can't even call them kids anymore. Liz tut-tutted with amusement at her mother. Cove shrugged, staying a neutral observer, but the small smile on his face revealed that he was enjoying the conclusion. Sorry, that term has expired. You grinned, letting them know that you were at least partly joking, though really you and Cove and Liz could hardly be called kids these days. You were glad that everyone was getting along. With that, your trip to the farmer's market was closed. It was time to move on. There were too many of you for one car, so you and Cove had wound up in Mr. Holden's car on the way over. He figured it made sense to do the same for the next leg of the journey. He sat next to Cove in the back. After buckling in, Cove leaned back in his seat, letting himself be cushioned by the headrest. Once he shifted a little, he appeared to have found the perfect angle for maximum comfort. He gazed out of the window, looking suitably content with the world. You followed suit, hunkering down in your seat and looking out of the window as the car pulled away from the lot. You knew Cove well enough to spot the signs of when he was physically present, but mentally elsewhere. The way you would fall quiet, staring without seeing, long blinks, all of which he was doing right now. He looked at nothing in particular. You closed your eyes as you pulled up the resolve to speak. You wagged your eyebrows at him jokingly. So, what you lost and thought about? Cove idly rubbed at his face. Honestly, I was just thinking about how nice it is to know you. It, makes life better and everything. Though he was turned away from you, his eyes were round and sincere. Not that this is a new revelation, but today was another reminder. I'm lucky. That's so sweet, I feel lucky too. Again, you motherfuckers making me blush up in here. You peeked at the corner of your eye, still too shy to look at him directly. You smiled at him affectionately, eliciting an equally caring smile from Cove in return. You felt content, secure in your relationship with Cove. You decided to enjoy the drink now. You wanted to save the drink for later. I will drink my root beer now, sir. You twisted off the cap and brought it to your mouth. Even before the first sip reached your lips, the scent tickled your nostrils. You took a swig. It was refreshing. Perfect way to hit the spot after a long morning trolling through the market. Not bad at all. Thanks, Cove. He grinned at you, pleased that his pick had been well received. You spent the rest of the day completing the remaining errands all together as a group. You had enjoyed your brief independence. You were glad that you closed the day with everyone. I'm gonna go there. It might not have come about under ideal circumstances, but it had provided you with the opportunity to spend time making your own choices. You felt that you'd risen to the challenge.